WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and without the Ravens playing a game, it is bye week, and on to Green Bay next weekend, where we will get a backup quarterback. Then the Houston Texans will come here with a backup quarterback, and this guy at one point was a backup lineman, then he became a starting lineman, then he became the starting center. He is the 11-year NFL vet. He's one of my best pals from the industry, and lo, these many years, he has a Super Bowl 35 ring, and he does sports radio, taking after his idol, me, up in Boston at 98.5 The Hub. He's also an analyst at NBC Sports up in Boston, and his child is finishing up a run, or I should say in the middle of a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory run on Broadway in New York. He's no Bruce Springsteen, Mike Flynn, I'll tell you that, right?
No, he's El Springsteen. I almost was going to go with you to see the Springsteen. You know what I mean?
You should have done it. You should have done it.
You should not sell yourself short. I mean, I learned what not to do on the radio because of you. That's something, right?
It's weird. Let me just say this. This year so far, the Ravens are bringing people like you in to do 4 games, right? They had a month of Todd Heap and a month of Dennis Pitta, and then now it's a month of Justin Forsett. I ran into Forsett at the Pancake Pantry on Sunday morning before the game. He's all nervous. It's the first game I've ever done. And I said, man, I'm just going to tell you everything I've told the rest of these guys. I taught you guys well. Don't screw this up. You know what I mean? I gave you a good entree into being a radio guy. And
it's simple advice. Just don't screw up.
Don't screw up.
Say anything stupid.
Well, my mom told Joe Flacco at one point, just get the job done. That's what she told Flacco. So, if there's anything that's not happening right now, we're not getting the job done. And I know he realizes that. The offense realizes that. John Harbaugh realizes that. All that being said, in a weird year when you're 4-5 and you kind of sort of stink, but so does everyone else. And because of that, it's much like the American League wild card this summer, right? Like, you didn't have to be particularly good to be the Minnesota Twins. You just had to be the last team standing. And the Ravens have the easiest schedule the rest of the way. They have as much health as they've had in recent months when Macklin and Watson and Wallace and Flacco. I mean, all these guys are healthy. Brandon Williams, they're all playing now. So for that, I feel like I want to be optimistic to some degree, but I watched the game on Sunday, Mike.
I did too. And it wasn't pretty. And I joke around. We'll send some texts back and discuss Flacco and the team, and I'll say something about Flacco to give you a hard time. And you mentioned the receivers, and you're right, they've struggled. And you know what? Honestly, the way you articulate it, they kind of stink. But there's a lot of teams in the AFC do. I mean, that's a perfect description of what the AFC is. I'm so confused. You have an idea. I mean, obviously the Patriots are going to win the division. They're at the top. Even though Kansas City's struggling, offensively they were so good in the beginning of the year, and I think other teams have caught up to what they're doing scheme-wise, and they're kind of back to that offense, plotting, not the explosive.
Well, they're not going down the field. I mean,
they're not going down the field, but earlier they're doing college-type scheming, and it worked. It was great, but obviously it's the NFL. People catch up. Pittsburgh, maybe. I think defensively they're playing better. I'm not sold on Roethlisberger, but let's say those are kind of your top 3 teams off to that. After that, I don't know. It really is, as you go in after 9 games in the season, like, what's your stretch? What's that last, 7-game stretch? What's the number really to get you in? Is it 9 wins? Is it 10? What do the Ravens have to do to get that? You mentioned their schedule, just the next couple games. You could not be perfect and win those type of games. And when you have the easiest schedule, if you could get healthy, play well defensively, and try to figure out just enough offensively, I mean, you have a chance to get in. I watch a lot of Red Zone, which I love for a lot of reasons. I mean, it keeps the game moving. You don't have the commercial, but you really get a feel for the league. Different coaches, styles, what they run, all that kind of stuff. And there are a lot of teams that are struggling. There's a lot of average team, and like you said, there's a lot of teams that kind of stink, but you see it all the time. This time of year, you're 8-9 games in, the 4-5s and the 5s and 4s. There's 1 or 2 of those teams throughout the league that kind of make the run in the wrong direction, right? Either they win those, 5 out of 6, or it's the opposite, where they just fall flat on their face out of the playoff contention. But they're there. They got a shot. I mean, it doesn't look good. I saw the Bear game, unfortunately, and I saw some of this, and they don't look good. What's going to change? They're not bringing in different personnel.
Well, what's going to change would be the schedule, right? You look at the Buffalo Bills as being 5-3. Look, they can't win a tiebreaker with Jacksonville. They can't win a tiebreaker with Tennessee now, right? Because they've lost to both of those teams. So you say, well, they beat Miami, you beat Oakland. I don't know if those teams will be standing. If the Buffalo Bills are that team, the Bills might not win for a month, dude. They have New Orleans. They have to go to L.A. and play the Chargers. They have to go to Kansas City and play the Chiefs, and then they get New England in their place. I mean, that's their next month. They might be 5-7 by the time that rolls around.
With me too. I feel like, they had that. What was that run? Was it Denver and Atlanta back to back or something like that? We had a couple good games there.
And now you look at those teams and they stink.
And that Thursday night game is such a Bills loss. And having been up in Boston now, 4 years or whatever it is, doing the radio and TV up here, kind of focusing on the AFC East and the franchise in that division, what they do in the offseason, and watching kind of what they do week to week because, more directly relates to the Patriots. And that is what the Bills are. Like, just when you think that they're 5-2, they have a chance to tie for the best record in the AFC, and you lay a huge egg to the Jets at home on a Thursday night. Like, that's what they are. And now that they're going to play good teams back to back to back to back, they're not consistent enough to go 4-2 in a stretch. Maybe not even 3-3 in a stretch. You're right. I mean, that could be a 2-4, and they're out of it. So, there are a lot of teams in that mix that struggle, just like the Ravens. And you've seen teams that don't play well, and they figure something out, whether it's, a certain scheme, how they're going to block things up. They have a little success, and they go on a run. So certainly the schedule helps when you're playing teams that aren't very good. I mean, obviously it helps because they're struggling. They're trying to find themselves, too. In the case of the New England Patriots, by the way, we're on the line with the great Mike Flynn. He is the main event. You can follow him. Many do at Flynn985. That's Flynn985. And, of course, he's on the air up at 98.5, The Hub in Boston. All this brought to you by our friends at Costas. Good enough for the Today Show. Good enough for my mom. Good enough for Mike Flynn. I took Flinner down there for fat crabs, cold beer. The legend continues at CostasIn.com, where I celebrated my Dundalk High Hall of Fame. And don't forget about Lee Tessier and his team at Keller Williams American Premier Realty. List your house with him. You risk nothing. His team's going to get your house sold. You can learn more at LeeTessier.com. Flinner, you're up there. Dundalk Hall of Fame. What was that for? Is it an academic thing? Or
No. It was the Athletic Hall of Fame, and they let me in on some sort of exception. It's crazy.
You were like the NFL Hall of Fame. It's a contributor?
I was a contributor. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm a contributor. Yeah, I like that. I like the contributor. I really do think it was a special contribution thing. Is what I'm gonna have to Google that and find out what they wrote about. You are Mr. Dundalk.
I'm just giving you a hard time, Nestor.
Well,
I don't want you to be sensitive. I know you love your time. I know you love Dundalk. I always give you a hard time.
It only took me 32 years. You deserve
to be in that Hall of Fame.
32 years. It took me.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's what. But contributors, it takes 32 years.
It takes a lifetime of effort.
You got to go to the Veterans Committee. So, I mean, that's the norm,
That is exactly the way it went down. I'm glad that you have kicked me on the only accomplishment I'm ever going to have in life.
Of course I would. Why wouldn't I?
You're up there in New England, and the weird part is you talk about all these other teams stinking and sucking and not being very good. And, New England's down a little bit, and they gave up a lot of points early in the year. I mean, dude, don't you just get the vibe they're going to be the 1 seed before this is all over with? And don't you just get the vibe that, what Tennessee Titans or Jacksonville Jaguars going to come to New England the third week of January and beat them? I mean, it's almost like candy from a baby. Even in the year when they're not very good, everyone else isn't that good either.
Well, I mean, from a talk radio, TV standpoint up here, it is very predictable and very boring. Beginning of the year, they didn't play well, and I still have a lot of questions about their defense. But with that said, I think it's questionable when you get to an AFC championship and when you get to a Super Bowl. I still think you look how it's played out, right? As good as Kansas City looked, they thumped New England in New England. They had, at one point, a 3-game lead in best record because, obviously, the head-to-head.
The Chiefs feel like a team that's going to peak in October, don't they, right? I mean,
absolutely.
That's who they feel like they're. And I would say the same thing about the Eagles unless, I'm in the Eagles fly zone in Minnesota.
I like the Birds. I've watched them. You know what? Here's what. They stop the run. They can run the ball, and not a lot of teams run, but it keeps you one-dimensional. They seem to be able to get after the pass with 4 guys or 4 rushers, which, in today's NFL, if you could do that, I mean, you could do a lot of things on the back end. But, in terms of the AFC, it seems pretty predictable. I mean, listen, you have the best coach-quarterback combination in the NFL. That there are other good quarterbacks, there are other good coaches, and I think Belichick is the best with Brady. It is. So right away, you have that going for you, which are the two most important things in football, right? Your head coach and your quarterback. They're very consistent. They every game they're ready to go. They're well coached. They're disciplined. So you don't have these big up and down swings. They'll lose a few games, but they're very consistent. Where teams that are more talented than them, they have these ups and downs. So in terms of regular season play, they're just always there. They're always competing. They always game plan well. And it gets them in that spot where and you're right, it's always, even if they get the second seed, they're seeing like a beat-up Colts team in the first round, and then in the divisional game, like even if it was Denver when the Ravens dumped them a few years, so then they end up having the home game, even though I thought over those 2 years the Ravens were better football teams, but still they end up having the home game. That's just how it works, and I think right now, I think you could pencil them into the AFC Championship, and I think it's going to come down to, can they win that game, and then obviously whoever they see from the NFC.
He is Mike Flynn, and Flynn985, the way to find him. All right, so just on scheme and on where we are, and being that you are an offensive mind of your own at this point, where are you with Marty Morningwig and what the Ravens are trying to do with tight end passes, with throwing the ball 52 times and running it 22 times? I mean, it feels like week after week, 50 passes, 260 yards for Flacco. It's just not the kind of efficiency you want to have in the offense.
Well, I saw him play, and I was down there. I saw you there with Cleveland. Obviously it worked well. I saw the Chicago game, saw last week, and obviously they're struggling. And, I don't know how good they are at receiver. I've seen drop balls, the routes not creating a lot of separation, but the need to throw the ball, I guess. You're hurting on the offensive line. If you don't have the horses to I guess if you go more ball control, which could be a possibility. But I think skill set wise, on the outside, you don't have the consistency to seem to me to throw the ball 55 times. And I don't know if that changes. And certainly it'll probably be discussed in the bye week. This is my guess would be, I think, and I've been a part of it with when Billick was there. You go to a bye week and you change a lot of different things what you do offensively. And what I mean by that, you have a chance to self-scout yourself and say, you know what, when it's all said and done and we break down the tape, we do 3 or 4 different combinations well. Well, we got to get those in there more times in the game. We can only protect 2 or 3 times on this, and you wrap that up in all different kind of formations, and it's not a different offense, but it's packaged different, and it's presented to defenses that you play different, and maybe how the motions and the formations. So, that's probably how things will change. You got to find out what you consistently do well. How can you hide some of your deficiencies and then package it up differently for these teams that they play?
For the rest of this thing here and the rest of the way, I start to see these other teams' schedules, and I look at the Ravens. Dude, backup quarterback Green Bay. Houston's going to come in with a backup quarterback. Detroit's coming in with Matt Stafford, but that's here. The only game I look at and say, well, Pittsburgh's tough on the road, but we always seem to play well there. Then you got Cleveland, Indianapolis with Jacoby Brissett, and the Cincinnati Bengals probably playing out the end of the Marvin Lewis era here in Baltimore in a home game. They're going to be favored 5, if not 6 of these 7 games, and quite frankly expected to win with a $25 million quarterback playing some guy named Hundley and some guy named Tom Savage. I don't think my expectations are that high, and I know they've had a lot of injuries and they've had a lot of problems, but there is a part of me where I really do think they're going to get back in this thing, and I think I'm going to be calling you at some point in December, a month from now, and you and I are not just going to be exchanging Springsteen reviews, but I do think the Ravens are going to be relevant on December 10th because it's set up to be that way in my mind.
I don't know let's see what Hundley does against Detroit and get a better idea. But up until this point, he's been nothing special, obviously. Savage for Houston is not a very good quarterback. You can't win with that guy. Obviously, Stafford. You mentioned Pittsburgh, but then you end up with a game manager in Brissett. The Bengals playing out the string, and Cleveland, which is horrible. Those are, regardless of how you play offensively, even if you play bad, those are still winnable games. But if you play good defense, you have a chance to dig yourself out of the hole offensively. So I'm with you. You look at that schedule, they have, at least on paper, the ability to be relevant in December. They need to figure out what they're going to do offensively, but in terms of how they're being attacked offensively, I mean, some of those quarterbacks, I don't know how they're in the league. I mean, Savage, watching the Houston and the Colt game, and Brissett, he's manageable, but he's not a guy that can go out there if you play good fundamental defense and he can come out and beat you. You have to make mistakes. So they're going to be in the conversation in Denver. We'll see. They're 4-5. The games that I've really zeroed on them, they've really struggled. The way they play those two games, I don't think they could beat a lot of those teams. But, you get time to sit back, regroup a little bit, and look what's in front of you and realize you have a chance to make a run and get into the playoffs.
Well, and that you're getting healthier, right? I mean, we sat here most of the summer worried whether Joe Flacco was ever going to get onto the field. Brandon Williams needed to get him back. They're talking about bringing Danny Woodhead back now, and that would definitely help the offense. The one thing I would say is the 4th and 1s and the decisions that Harbaugh has to make with this otherworldly kicker, are a little different than I think during your era where Matt Stover was a very, very reliable guy once you got inside the 25-yard line.
Yep.
He was going to be able to kick you a field goal from anywhere inside there. I mean, it feels like when the Ravens get to the other side of midfield, at any point they could bring this kid in and at least give it a shot, give it a gander. But on 4th and 1 and 4th and inches, there's also this thought, well, let's just get a first down and keep the drive going. And, they run time off the clock. It's been a lot of clock management issues. And I asked Harbaugh point blank after the game in Nashville, do you always think you're going to make it on 4th and 1? And he said, yeah, I always think we're going to make it on 4th and 1. And statistically, if you break it all down and do all the nerd work on it, going on 4th and 1 is always the right call, right? But from your mind frame and your thought of it as an offensive lineman, if you can't get a yard, you probably don't deserve to be there. And that's kind of where they were on Sunday. They went for the yard. They didn't get it. They reviewed it. They still didn't get it. And then they wound up in a position where had they just kicked the field goal there, they would have been in the game. I mean, it would have extended the game to kick a field goal.
Well, I mean, those are points in a game, right? And you're right. I'm not a big – I am a big stat guy, but in terms of, I don't want that to be my only metric of what's good or bad. But, yeah, you look at it statistically, in the long run, it's better off going for the 4th down. But in terms of being a player and in a game there, you want that opportunity to kind of get that first down, keep a drive going, get that momentum instead of settling for 3. I think there's context to everything. If it's something where you struggled a lot offensively, it's the end of a half, it's a certain spot in a game, and you just need to get points on the board to kind of break that ice, you go for it. But if you're closing out a game, if it's a 2-score game, and it's like, okay, what's better? Kick the field goal now, then have the drive the field later, or just roll the dice on a 4th and 1 where you as an offensive line, you got to get that yard. The context of that is kind of how I make my decisions, and of course John's going to feel like he can get it. I don't know what's in his head, but if he didn't seem like, if you're a guy that's going to say go for it, and you don't believe you can do it, then what are you doing? Kick it, punt it. It doesn't make any sense. I do believe that they have their 4th and goal line, short yardage, 4th and 1 package. They have a lot of confidence in it, and it needs to be executed. And certainly you could get out schemed, but there's a lot of context to those 4th and 1s. And when I played, I would have liked to gone for more. When I was there, we were very conservative. It was always Stover, and we won because of that. But my only thought was, what if it's 4th and 1 and we get 3 extra set of downs in the red zone because of it? Do we score that extra 7 points? We figured something out, but we didn't. So I don't mind being a bit more aggressive. Certainly context where you are on the field, but I like being aggressive. But 4th and 1s. Very easy to second guess, especially when you have a kicker like that and you're, in essence, taking points off the board.
He is the main event. He is Flynn at 985 out on Twitter. And, of course, our Super Bowl 35 champion around here. Heard around the world and around Boston at 98.5 The Hub. This portion of our programming brought to you by King Discount Liquors. Lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. I am in need of Malbec. I need to give the King a ring, get out to Pulaski Highway and do that. Also, Compass Point Golf Course is down in Pasadena. The best place to play this fall and winter. Now, you can go out there with a little sweater, a little windbreaker, whatnot. Plenty of events going on. Friendly folks. Our pal Robert Kennedy is here once a week talking some college basketball, but he's also down at Compass Point Golf Course in Pasadena. You can learn more at compasspointgolf.com. All right, Flinner, last thing for you, because I know you got some baseball in you and on you, and your thoughts about it. I know how much you love baseball up there in Boston. First off, Girardi getting canned, right? I mean, you guys got a new manager going on there. We've got a mess down here, but that was a hell of a World Series, right?
It was. It was a good. The Game 7 was a little disappointing, huh? I kind of tweeted out there when it was 5-0. I was saying there's no way. Unfortunately, I go, do I have to stay up for this? But I can't believe it's going to end, kind of the way it did. But yeah, it was a great World Series. Not because I am Mr. Baseball, not at all. I actually picked Houston to win. I thought they were going to win. I just liked what I saw them when they played the Sox. I felt they had something. It was more just an instinct than throwing it out there. But yeah, it was a good series. Big change in the AL East. Not stunned with the Girardi firing, and after the fact, seemed like that was probably in the works anyway. Obviously, not stunned with the John Farrell firing. That probably should have happened potentially a year or two ago. Who knows? But we'll see what Alex Cora could do. Coming from Houston, around a winning team right now, and certainly, at least from the Red Sox point of view, they need something. They need kind of a jump start for that managerial position, and we'll see if it makes a change, makes a difference.
Oh, we'll screw it up. We're in Baltimore. Just stay tuned, right? I mean, no problem there. I will never call you the Feezer, even though I know they call you that up in Boston. You will always be the main event to me, Flinner.
I love main event much better.
All right, well, I do too. We'll get some lobster together, and a damn shame you're not in New York when I'm in New York, because we could do New York things, but our time will come, and next time you're down here, we'll have some crab cakes. We'll take you out to Costas, man. Great having you on.
Thanks, buddy.
You got it. Mike Flynn, one of my all-time favorites. Go see his child perform on Broadway in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Mike's back and forth between Boston, New York, and, of course, down here for some Ravens games. He's got kids running around, grandparents, parents, all that good stuff. He always makes some time to come on and talk some sports with us. We are appreciative. 2 decades I've known Mike Flynn now. Damn. Almost half my life. Flynn985, the way to find him out on Twitter. You can find me in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. It's all there for you. We're doing a live show with CJ Mosley next Tuesday night. I'm going to get you some more details on that later on in the week. All brought to you by our friends at Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. Choose the right lender. Go out to Freedmont.com and hold next Tuesday night open. We're going to be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. For There Goes My Hero with CJ Mosley before the Green Bay game. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. If there's any breaking news at all in the midst of all the madness around here of bye week, you're going to get that first on the WNST text service. That is all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford, Security Boulevard. Of course, Dennis Colatzos is going to be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. And, of course, that's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Trying to get you through the bye week around here and get it done and keep it lean and clean and mean and Springsteen and all that stuff as well. You can follow along at nasty at WNST.net. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.